Right, before we start, make sure you go and check out my new book, Modal Alternate Picking, if you want a practice schedule which will upgrade your technique, your ears, and your fretboard knowledge in the same exercise. You have a link in the description below, and it's $9. It's way underpriced for what you're getting, but you still need to put in the work, of course. So I can't do that for you, but you have everything in that book if you want to improve your technique and all the other things that I just mentioned. Alright, so in this video I'm just going to talk a bit about what worked for me when it came to the technique stuff and what didn't work for me and what I've seen in literally hundreds of students over the years. And it's quite frustrating to see certain things getting, sold online. I'm not saying sold necessarily in a monetary sense, but it's this prevailing notion that the absolute only way to get your technique up to a good level is to start at a very slow tempo and then you inch the metronome up 2 BPMs at a time, and then 6 months later you're gonna emerge being Paul Gilbert. But I don't believe that's true. It wasn't true for me, and no one that I know who has a really good technique did it that way. I'm not saying that it cannot work that way. I'm sure there's people out there that made that work, but it's very hard to get that to work because of our egos, basically. Because I've tried this myself a lot, and also I've heard people that say like, well, it worked really great for me, bro, and then when I hear them play, it's kind of like, okay, great, but then I know that they're not really listening to what they're playing. Instead, they're going by some number on the metronome, and that they're actually wiggling the fingers around at that tempo. And that doesn't work for me, right? So again, this is very personal to me, but like I said, I've seen this in students as well, and a lot of people that have come to me has tried that method for months, if not years, and being very disappointed that they cannot get over a certain hump on the metronome. And the reason why I don't think it works for most people is because we tend to look at the metronome and we're starting to get close to a nice even number like 100 BPMs or 120 BPMs. And even though the technique isn't really working at that point, we kind of want to truck forward because it's, you want to get there and it feels good to see progress. What happens when you do that, though, is that you tend to spend most of your practice time rubbing against that slightly too fast tempo, where you're kind of sitting there, instead of being very accurate, whatever you're trying to work on, you kind of sit at a tempo where it's almost falling apart for you, but you feel like no pain, no gain. And when you look at progressive overload in the gym, that's how you do it. You need to be on the edge, and that's how you push forward. But in my opinion, this thing is more about, it's a skill more so than a brute force thing. So if you want to look at it in sports terms, maybe look at golf instead, right? So a golfer would not stand on the pitch and just swing his whatever club wildly over and over again, hoping that, if I just swing this fucking thing 10,000 times, I will master it. So no sane golfer would ever do that. And I don't play golf, so I don't know really how all that stuff works. But from what I've seen in terms of overall learning, golf is the same, where you have to really focus on what you're doing and make sure that you do the correct motions over and over again until the brain knows what's up and what you want to achieve, and then you can do that without thinking about it. So this whole notion of finding a tempo where you barely can do it and just pushing, that might be a good idea for a small part of your practice session, but spending 80 to 90% of your practice session at that tempo is a very bad idea. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are gonna be really upset with me and say that, well, that actually worked great for me. And if it did, great, keep on doing that. But if you're in the boat of a lot of students that come to me, and a lot of people I've seen online where they talk about how they get stuck at a certain BPM and it doesn't work for them, maybe try a different approach. Maybe forget about the actual tempo or top tempo that you can play overall, and just stick at a tempo where everything is absolutely perfect. And I've said, several times, I usually practice around 80 BPMs for eighth notes, so around this tempo. Because doing that really enables me to focus on what I find the most important, which is the accuracy. And I want to build a really strong connection between the two hands when it comes to any type of picking, whether sweep picking or hybrid picking, alternate picking. The synchronization is so important. So at least for me, because I want every note that I hit should be 100%. It's never going to be that way because I'm not a robot, right? But I want to keep it as close to that as possible when I practice, when I actually just play for fun or improvise or try to play something, whatever. It should be in the ballpark at least. But if I sit there at a too quick tempo and just go for it the whole time, my brain is going to be like, all right, so I guess you just want me to wiggle your fingers around, and it doesn't really matter if you're connected or not. Because think of it like this: if you're practicing at 80 BPMs, let's say, and this is the perfect synchronization, a representation of that. If you then slightly, you start raising the tempo, and the more you raise the tempo, your synchronization starts to drift. And as it drifts, your brain doesn't make that distinction in terms of good or bad. That's another part of your brain. So when I say your brain, I mean different parts of your brain. Again, I'm no neuroscience, but if you keep repeating the wrong thing, you're gonna get that part of your brain that handles that to repeat that in the same way eventually if you do enough reps. So if you sit at a slightly off-kilter synchronization ratio for most of the part of your practice, that's what your brain is gonna pick up the most. So then you shouldn't be frustrated when you try to play something and it's like, the hell's going on here? I've been spending 3 hours per day working on picking and this doesn't work, so there must be something wrong with me. But it's not something wrong with you. It's something wrong with the way that you practice. So give yourself a chance and really focus on the accuracy. And I have a video that I'm gonna link at the end of this one where I basically try to prove that point. And a lot of you that actually did that saw a big tempo increase even though we didn't push the metronome at all. We just played a certain exercise at a very low tempo, focusing on quality, and then testing 1 week later. Only 1 week, which is nothing. And most of you who did that could see quite a significant tempo increase. So that's what I'm trying to sort of show you with this video. So again, if everything works for you the way that it is, and you're totally fine and happy with the metronome, chunking it up in a small amount every day and just playing as much, as close as you can to the upper limit, just keep doing that. This video is not for you. But if you have a feeling that something is not quite right when you do that, then maybe try this different approach. It really does make a huge difference. And this is what I found out way back in the day when I started to, out of frustration basically, just starting to have this long practice session. I just amassed a lot of different picking exercises, but I did them at a very slow tempo. And my initial idea was that, I should actually, I start at this very slow tempo, and then I'm going to raise the metronome speed, and then eventually I'm going to be Paul Gilbert. Now, what happened instead was that I practiced at that tempo for a week or so, and then I noticed every day after I was done with this, mega practice session, I think it was like a 2-3 hour picking marathon, but at a very slow tempo, just going very slow and deliberate. I didn't think about pick slanting or anything like that because that didn't exist at the time. This was in the 90s. I just noticed that all the stuff that I was playing for fun afterwards started to get faster, starting to get cleaner, and just working way better as compared to when I was actually trying to, choosing one thing and I'm gonna get this up to speed now using all those metronome principles that look so good on paper, but as I've hopefully explained from my perspective at least why it doesn't work that well, and you keep programming slightly wrong synchronization for most of your practice sessions, and then it just keeps feeling worse and worse every day. That's it. This is quite a long-winded talky video, but give this a try and let me know in the comments below what you think about all this stuff, and if you've tried both methods and what you think works the best. And again, it's not about not trying to play fast as well, because I did that after I had practiced slowly for a long time. I would try to play these licks that I've been wanting to play. I would try to play those faster and faster, so I kind of got my speed burst practice in at the same time. But I would say that if you spend like 80% of your time practice slowly with super accurate transitions, and when you're working on the transition times, the quick transitions, again I have a video on that as well, link that in the description. And if you do that and then maybe spend 10 to 20% of your time doing more speed burst stuff, I think you will be very happy with the results. So with all that said, check out this video for that 7-day challenge, where you basically challenge yourself to see if you can improve the speed of something just by practicing it slowly. So make sure you read the instructions for that and watch the whole video so you know what to do.